welcome everyone. Go ahead and grab your notebooks, settle in, and get ready, because today we're diving into an ultimate masterclass in archaeological anthropology. Look, whether you're prepping for your upcoming bachelor level exams, or you're just, endlessly fascinated by the secrets buried right beneath our feet, this explainer is designed to give you a really comprehensive, rock-solid foundation. We're going to cover a lot of ground today, literally and figuratively, so let's just get right into it. I actually want to start our session off with this brilliant quote from K.P. Oakley. It perfectly frames our entire discipline. I mean, think about it. Human beings, we don't have sharp claws, we don't have thick fur, and we certainly don't have massive fangs. Biologically speaking, we're actually pretty vulnerable out there. So how on earth did we survive and completely dominate the globe? Well, through culture, and specifically through material culture. We use tools as an extrasomatic behavior, meaning a behavior that happens outside of our physical bodies, to adapt to and manipulate our environment. So when an archaeologist digs up a stone tool, they aren't just finding a rock. No way. They are finding a fossilized human thought. They're literally finding a detachable extension of a prehistoric arm. How cool is that? Okay, let's dive right into this syllabus. To guarantee you can mentally organize this massive amount of information for the exam, we've broken this down into 5 exact modules. We'll hit defining archaeological anthropology, exploration and excavation, dating the past, decoding lithic technology, and finally, the human cultural journey. So let's kick things off with Module 1, the why. Defining archaeological anthropology. All right, here is your classic textbook definition. Archaeological anthropology is the holistic study of the human past and extinct cultures through material remains. Now, the absolutely crucial point for your exam here is that prior to script part. History as a discipline relies heavily on written records, but writing has really only existed for about the last 5,000 years. That means the vast overwhelming majority of the human story happened long before anyone ever jotted down a single word. Because there are obviously no diaries or, tax records from 2 million years ago, we have to act as detectives. We're reverse engineering past behaviors entirely from surviving artifacts like food debris, bones, and stone tools. Moving right along to Module 2, the where and how, exploration and excavation methods. Take a look here at your standard excavators toolkit. You've got your heavy picks and shovels for clearing the overburden, moving all the way down to trowels and really fine brushes for those delicate artifact layers, plus sifting screens to make sure not a single tiny fragment is lost. But honestly, the most important tools here are actually the measuring tapes and grid strings. Why? Well, because excavation is, technically speaking, a controlled destruction of evidence. Once you dig a site up, it's gone forever. You literally can never dig it twice. And that is exactly why we lay down a rigid grid system and meticulously map the exact 3D coordinates of every single piece of flint or bone we find. Context is absolutely everything in this field. Now, when we read the earth during an excavation, we essentially use 2 main spatial strategies. Vertical excavation is all about depth. You're digging a deep trench to reveal the chronological layers, the stratigraphy of a site. It's kind of like reading a history book from the bottom page up to the top. The deeper you go, the older it gets. Horizontal excavation, on the other hand, is about digging wide across a single layer. So you aren't looking at deep time here, you're looking at space. You want to see the actual layout of a single village at one specific moment in time, where the hearth was, where the tool-making area was, and where they put the refuse pit. Which brings us to Module 3, the when, dating the past in the lab. To figure out how old things are, we use 2 overarching concepts, and you absolutely need to know the difference between these 2 for your exams. Relative dating simply determines if an object is older or younger than something else, right? Like, if I find a hand axe in a deep soil layer, and then a piece of pottery and a layer 10 feet above it, I know the hand axe is older based on the stratigraphy, but I don't know the actual year it was made. Absolute dating, however, provides a precise numerical calendar age. It tells us that an artifact is exactly 12,000 years old based on its physical or chemical properties. I highly recommend you memorize this table for your exam. It breaks down the major dating methods. Stratigraphy gives us our relative baseline, but look at the absolute methods. C14, or radiocarbon dating, is incredible, but it only works on organic materials, things that were once alive, like bone or wood, and it maxes out at about 50,000 years. So if we're looking at human ancestors from millions of years ago, C14 is completely useless. Instead, we use potassium-argon dating. This measures the radioactive decay in volcanic rocks, and this is exactly how we date those incredibly ancient hominid fossils found sandwiched between layers of volcanic ash at the famous Olduvai Gorge in East Africa. And then for non-radiometric absolute dating, we have dendrochronology, which is just counting those unique climate-driven tree ring patterns up to about 12,000 years ago. Okay, let's jump to Module 4, the what? Decoding lithic technology. The foundational concept you need here is lithic reduction. It's the mechanical process of taking a larger core stone and striking it with a hammer, either another stone or maybe a piece of bone, to detach sharp fragments, which we call flakes. Now, notice the unique pattern on the flaked stone. How do we tell a human-made flake apart from, say, a rock that just fell off a cliff and broke? Well, when a human strikes a stone with intentional force, it leaves a very specific shockwave pattern on the rock, resulting in a little swelling right below the point of impact. We call this the bulb of percussion. If you see a bulb of percussion, you have definitive proof that you are holding an artifact made by human hands, and not just some random product of nature. Over millions of years, hominids got so much better at this reduction process. Early on, they used direct percussion. This is forceful and pretty rudimentary. You basically take a hammerstone and smash it directly against your core stone. It's great for making heavy, rugged chopping tools. But later on, humans developed indirect percussion. Instead of hitting the core directly, they placed a punch medium, like a pointed piece of antler, right against the core, and then struck the antler. This transferred the energy with absolute pinpoint precision, allowing them to shear off incredibly fine, razor-sharp stone blades. It represents a massive, game-changing leap in human cognitive and physical dexterity. And lithic technology didn't just stop at fleeking. Let's walk through the exact procedural steps used much later to create a polished celt, which is a type of heavy stone axe. First up is chipping, where you roughly flake the rock into a basic axe shape. Then comes pecking, where you use a pointed hammer to systematically crush and break down the rough ridges. And finally, grinding and polishing, where you literally rub the tool against a hard granite slab with sand and water for hours and hours until it's perfectly smooth and incredibly durable. This specific technology completely revolutionized the world because these durable axes allowed early humans to efficiently clear vast forests to make way for agriculture. Which perfectly sets up our final section, Module 5, the Who. The human cultural journey. All right, this is the classic three-age system timeline you definitely need to know. It begins around 2.5 million years ago with the Paleolithic, or the Old Stone Age. This is by far the longest era of human history, characterized by nomadic hunter-gatherers and those simple flaked stone tools. Then, around 10,000 years ago, right as the Ice Ages ended, we hit the Mesolithic transition, where humans adapted to fast-moving game using tiny, highly efficient stone blades called microliths. Then, around 10,000 BCE, everything changes. The Neolithic, the new Stone Age, begins. This is the agricultural revolution. We go from simply gathering food to actively producing it. We see the rise of those polished axes, pottery, and permanent villages. Eventually, this settles into the Bronze and Iron Ages, bringing metallurgy, urban civilizations, and finally, the invention of script, which officially ends the whole period of prehistory. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the basic definitions all the way to the intricacies of lithic reduction and the grand timeline of human development. But I really want to wrap up this masterclass explainer by leaving you with a bit of a provocative thought. We just spent all this time reverse engineering the lives of ancient peoples based on their discarded stones, bones, and pottery. But remember, culture is an ongoing process. We are constantly creating our own archaeological record right now, every single day. So when the archaeological anthropologists of the year 12,024 dig up our civilization, what will our material remains say about us? Will our defining artifacts be brilliant smartphones or just millions of plastic sporks? Something to think about as you study. Good luck on your exams, stay curious, and keep digging into the past.